O dabar noriu pristatyti mūsų trečiąją pranešėją, Schneider Electric Baltijos šalių vadovę, Sohvi Rajamaki, kuris skaitys pranešimą tema Sprendimai išmaniesiems miestams. Naujas miesto optimizavimo lygis.
Good morning. As we all know, urbanization is the real megatrend that we are facing throughout the world. The estimates say that by 2050, more than 2.5 billion people, in addition to the people who live in cities today, will be living in the cities of the world. This places a huge demand on the infrastructure of the cities. My name is Sohvi Rajamaki. I'm from Schneider Electric, which is a global technology supplier, and I will share a bit what are the ways in which technology can help cities overcome these challenges. Just very briefly on Schneider Electric. So we are a French global company. We specialize in energy management and automation. We have around 25 billion revenues, and we work in more than 100 countries around the world. We believe that technology is a way to make the world a better place to live, and that's why we invest a significant amount of money into developing better technical solutions for the world of tomorrow. When it comes to cities, we believe that every citizen has the right to benefit from the things that the city can offer for them. And this means that cities should be sustainable, they should be reliable, and they should be efficient. This is by no means an easy thing for cities and municipalities to achieve. Because of the huge urbanization, the stress in cities increases. There is more and more congestion, there are more and more people wanting to have services from the cities, and the daily life becomes more and more hectic. Also, negative impacts like crime rise when you bring more people together. Secondly, how does a city that was planned for a smaller amount of people cope with a much larger amount of people? The infrastructure should develop, but it's very difficult to develop when the people already live in the city. Additionally, developing infrastructure, of course, costs money, and who should pay for it? This is out of all of our pockets, and none of us likes paying taxes. So cities should find a cost-efficient way of developing further. We all want to live in an environment that is green, that is prosperous, that is healthy for us. So cities also need to take environmental aspects into account when developing and growing. The globalization that we see also places stress on cities. It used to be enough for Vilnius to be ruling the land around Vilnius. But in today's world, Vilnius actually competes with all the other cities of the world. We can increasingly work from wherever we want to live, so people can choose where they live and contribute their work somewhere else. Also attracting different companies to invest in the cities, to bring more jobs. It's another thing where increasingly the competition is global today. And we as citizens, we simply want more than what was there in the past. We are used to having a lot of clever technology to help us in everyday life, and we also expect the cities to be able to provide us services that are readily available and easy to use. So what we think is that technology is actually something that can help cities solve some of these issues. And when we look at technology development of the recent years, there are certain quite separate areas of technology development that when they come together enable us actually to build cities in a very different way compared to the past. Firstly, there is mobility. We all have this device in our pockets, and if we think of how we consume different services, it's quite different from still 10 years ago. or 20 years ago. And mobility as such has made a tremendous change in everyone's lives. Secondly, the cloud technologies, just the sheer possibility of collecting huge amounts of data in a very cost-efficient manner, and also in a way that it is potentially available for many different applications, many different users accessing the data simultaneously from wherever in the world. Of course, in the past weeks, we have also seen the downside of this and what sharing of data can mean to the individual's privacy. So for sure, technology also comes with certain challenges. But technology as such is never bad or good. It's more how we put it into use. Sensor technology is another area that has faced a tremendous change during the past couple of decades. Sensors used to be quite expensive and measuring something was difficult and cumbersome. But now the cost of sensing has gone down in many areas, and we can embed more and more sensors into other things in addition to measuring kind of outside of those objects. Collecting all this data from sensors, placing it in the cloud, that's just dummy big data. That's just huge amounts of megabytes of data. But what enables us then to benefit from that data is the analytical capabilities, which increasingly help us to utilize then the data we have collected. And finally, I mentioned about the bad uses of the data, so security technology is developing at the same time. Of course, we need to be able to keep up with the bad guys of the world, and that's not always easy. But when you put all these technology developments together, you actually also, for the cities, create a lot of different possibilities. So how should then cities go about bringing technology into the cities? As I mentioned, the challenge is that you already have a lived-in environment, and you can't just say that, okay, let's take everything down and let's build everything from the scratch with the nice new technology that we have. What we believe is that you need to kind of create a virtuous cycle of it. So you identify certain pain points, you invest in fixing some of those, you free up resources that you can then use to invest in either upgrading services for the citizens or creating new services. That way you improve the city, you make it more attractive. You are able to pull in investment into the city, bring more jobs, and that way you will again have more money to keep the circle running. So it's not a revolution, it's actually an evolution of the city as we see it. So what can technology then do for a city? The first thing is that if you look at the recent environmental changes that we have had, there are more and more threats from weather, for example, that the cities have to cope with. Also, we don't know what technology will demand of the cities in 10 or 20 years, but the investments we make, they are long-term. So the city should be an organism that is able actually to recover and to redefine itself, and technology can enable this. Secondly, cities actually are huge consumers. Half of the world's population lives in cities, but the cities actually consume 2/3 of world's energy and cause 3/4 of the CO2 emissions of the world. So cities actually need to learn to become more efficient, and here again technology can help. We can understand better how resources are being used, and then we can control the usage of those resources. And finally, everything of course needs to be connected in order to be able to benefit from the information available, to be able to control the things within the city. So from Schneider Electric's viewpoint, you can see here some of those areas that comprise a smart city that we as a company focus on. You previously, although I couldn't follow the presentation much, you heard a lot about smart traffic, but there are other areas additionally. So smart energy, for us as an energy company, is one area where we have invested a lot. If you think of the ambitions of cities to become more green, to allow more people live in them, actually that requires a lot more from the electrical distribution of the city. Take electrical vehicles, for example. They are very good for reducing pollution in the cities, but they demand their own infrastructure for recharging the batteries. If you take solar panels, the cost of which has dramatically dropped during the past 10 years, basically every one of us could become, in addition to a consumer of energy, also a producer of the energy. The challenge just is that no electrical grid in the world was planned for that kind of a model. They were all planned for a central production that then gets distributed to us, the consumers. And now this equation is changing. So we need to build grids that are actually smart and that can control the different sources of energy production as well as then the consumption of the energy, actually helping us use less energy, less electricity than what we would otherwise do. If you take the area of smart water, so here we talk, of course, about how can we, with the least possible energy consumption, bring clean water to all the citizens. But it's not only that. It's also about how do we then purify the water that has been used? How do we handle with when there is too much water? I remember at least twice last summer being in Vilnius and facing flooded roads and another challenge for the smart traffic, definitely. But technology can also help to control those processes. I will show you then a bit more with a concrete example of what we can do when we talk about smart buildings in the city. Of course, a lot of the city is about buildings, and the technology is actually helping buildings become very much smarter. And I will show you a concrete example on that. All of this should, of course, be then integrated in a smart way, that information is exchanged and the different systems understand and react to each other and the changes in them. As we are talking about a lot of different systems of the city, how we believe that it all should come together is actually in layers of technology that work with each other. And this is where we are seeing a real shift in the technology available in the world. In the bottom, we call it connected products. These are actually devices that we are used to having in our daily lives. The change is that they have become intelligent. If you think of any building, there are a number of electrical distribution boxes. You all have one at your home. And that used to be a very dummy thing. It actually was used to take electricity in, distribute it to different users inside your home, the stove, the lighting, different things, and also provide a basic mechanism of security, that if one of those devices becomes faulty, the electricity is cut and your house doesn't burn down. But today, it is actually possible, the electrical distribution box in your home, to actually monitor the electricity usage and to control the electricity usage. And by simple things like bringing this sort of intelligence into buildings, you can save up to 30% of the electrical consumption in the building without impacting negatively your daily life or causing more trouble for you as the user. Then the next level, which is called edge control, this is about being able to locally control what's happening in a building or in a water purification plant or any other such controllable entity. And why we want to have that is that if we don't have the data connection, you don't want to rely on the cloud. I guess you've all faced it, that you wanted to watch something from Netflix and then there was no coverage. So that's pretty annoying. But if it happens to be the water purification plant of the city, it's more than annoying if you can't control it anymore because of the missing data connection. So certainly you need to have that close by. But the real transformation for our kind of industries comes from the next layer, which is where all these analytical capabilities come in. And we are able to collect all this data generated in the different systems and process it and then improve the way the city functions. Okay, so let's take a look at the buildings themselves, and what I would actually like to share with you is a concrete example from Amsterdam. This is a project where we worked together with Deloitte, the large consulting company, when they were building a new office building. And actually, what it ended up being is the most sustainable office in the world. And I will let the colleague from Deloitte actually tell you a bit about it.
It's called the edge because we're on the edge of technology. When the board asked me to construct this building, I made sure it has everything like Internet of Things, sensors, sustainability, and integrated those into a data analysis platform. The smart structure of Schneider Electric is basically the whole backbone of this building. The building is obviously the most sustainable office building in the world. The way the architect designed it, using the natural part of the sun and sunlight and solar panels, it produces about 102% of the building's energy. The most important thing for a smart structure from Schneider is the single backbone, so we would be able to connect everything, but also to get the data into a data analysis platform. And you can learn, and therefore you can make smarter algorithms, even lowering the energy further. So it's not just sustainable, but it's also extremely comfortable to be the best workplace for our people. Schneider Electric being a single integrator, for us, it worked extremely well.
Okay, so that was a quick glimpse into what technology can do within cities, and the outcome of using technology in the existing city environment is that the city becomes connected, digital, efficient, sustainable, reliable, and more competitive in the future landscape of the world. So thank you all for having me and listening to some stories of how technology can help cities become smarter.